Before the Renaissance echoed its grandeur, a world lay cloaked in shadow and strife, the Middle Ages. A millennium stretched from Rome's quiet fall to the fiery sunrise of rebirth. Picture the world descending into quietude, Roman roads crumbling, cities sighing final whispers. This is where our journey starts. Amid the ruins, warlords emerged, while Nordic seafarers, the Vikings, spread disruption from their longships. Fortresses were razed, great churches constructed, and belief contended with doubt. Corpses littered battlegrounds. Pestilence and division frayed society's fabric, unraveling an age soaked in metal and gore. Embark with us to survey this old world. Shadows invite us. So let's journey to when the Roman Empire, formerly a symbol of strength and culture, began to dwindle. Not in a loud collapse, but a hushed breath on the breeze. Envision ancient Rome's vibrant markets, now steeped in eerie stillness. Its once crowded thoroughfares emptied, public works decaying, roads, aqueducts, and forums. Rome's powerful conduits lay neglected. The emperor's rule no longer wielded its former strength. With existence reduced to survival amidst past grandeur's debris, authority transitioned from the emperor to warlords, bishops, and local leaders who flourished in this uncertain ground. As central control waned, their individual might grew. It was during this turbulent shift that a new era dawned, fraught with peril and promise, awaiting its legends. The empire's decline wasn't swift, but a gradual, corrosive process. Internal discord, fueled by political battles and unchecked corruption, consumed it from within. Emperors succeeded one another alarmingly fast, each less capable than the last. Rome's frontiers thinned under crushing military strain, nearing collapse. From without, barbarian groups encircled the fading city. Like carrion birds scenting injured game, the Visigoths plundered Rome in 410 AD. It represented more than just a raid. It stood as a grim marker of the powerful empire's frailty. With Roman infrastructure decaying, residents lost their former sense of safety. The grand baths, tall aqueducts, and lively forums turned into faint echoes of history. Commercial links broke down, forcing people to cope with significantly reduced living standards, moving from Roman comforts to mere sustenance. The idea of Rome changed from tangible fact to legend, guiding Western Europe onto a new trajectory of splintered realms and developing urban centers. Still, even as Rome's governmental framework dissolved, the vision of Rome persisted, casting a vast influence across the medieval mind. It served as an ideal for rule and society. Aspiring leaders such as Charlemagne dreamt of reviving Roman dominance, viewing themselves as continuators of a heritage unwilling to vanish. Roman battle tactics, architectural achievements, and legal foundations were prized treasures, passed down through time. Cities retained marks of Roman strength, and rising kings drew upon this inheritance, forming their nascent domains. The concept of Rome validated their authority, connecting them to a splendor that hadn't entirely faded. The appeal of this vision spurred medieval attempts to unite or control parts of Europe, leading to the Holy Roman Empire and inspiring architectural feats that emulated classical majesty. As the well-built Roman roads fell into decay, they became symbols of an empire divided. These thoroughfares, once bustling with troops and merchants, now lay neglected, overgrown with disuse. This decline mirrored the empire's diminishing might, but also created novel chances. As commercial paths altered, fortified settlements became powerful hubs, and craftsmen resurrected lost skills. Here among the wreckage bloomed creativity. As people adapted for survival, these routes, now brimming with potential, connected nascent societies to a shared history, pushing them toward an unknown future. Driven by need and the will to survive, they carried with them the insights of an older age, underpinning a medieval age of innovation and fortitude. In the empire's twilight, warlords, skilled in war and planning, arose. As Roman armies withdrew, these ambitious individuals filled the vacuum. Their authority, though stern, was crucial. They carved kingdoms from the ruins, basing their strength on military might and political ties. These figures became authority's new guardians, frequently of noble birth or elevated by force, steering the unstable course of rule against disorder. While their tactics were often cruel, they offered some order to their people during a turbulent period. Within the absence of secular power, the church rose as a powerful, steady force. Its bishops held dual roles, acting as spiritual overseers in an unpredictable land. Bishops resolved disputes, counseled leaders, and ensured continuity where Rome could not. Their sway reached past religious duties. The church's system endured longer than many temporal structures, spreading a calming influence over a fragmented Europe. Their presence linked old customs to future hopes, weaving a sense of purpose into medieval life. Lingering traces of pagan customs remained, blended into the emerging Christian lands. Older traditions changed alongside Christian ways, forming a rich cultural mix. Celebrations honoring ancient deities were reinterpreted through a Christian viewpoint, fusing the spiritual paths of former times and the new. This blend of customs showed a widespread cultural strength where Europe's ancient heritage wouldn't fade under Rome's influence. Within the empire's remnants lay the foundation for a revitalized society. Tongues changed, and unique cultures developed within the crumbling structures. As Europe moved into the Middle Ages, it wasn't just survival that called, but a vibrant period of exploration. From monastery studies to skilled crafts, the collapse spurred innovation, setting the stage for an identity that would last and reshape the modern world. Rome's fall was more than just a conclusion, it was a turning point, offering opportunities for exploration and revival, altering Europe's future direction and ensuring its lasting impact. Following Rome's collapse, a disordered mix of aspirations unfolded across Europe. Amid the empire's remnants, various tribes vied for control, notably the Franks. Originating from the misty Lower Rhine shores, these Germanic groups seized the Romans' fading authority like predators attacking vulnerable quarry. By the late 5th century, led by the astute and ruthless Clovis I, the Franks started defining the territory that would become modern France from the remnants of Roman Gaul. Clovis's impact was complex. His military skill was matched only by his political shrewdness. Using pacts forged in kinship and trust, he formed a nascent realm from decline, creating the Merovingian line, who claimed divine ancestry. This warrior kingdom found a new rhythm, marked not only by clashing weapons but also church hymns. Influenced by his wife Clotilde and possibly a miracle at Tolbiac, Clovis converted to Christianity, bringing his domain under the Roman Church's sway. Switching faiths, the Franks traded their deities' disorder for Christian unity, a move boosting both divine and secular authority, binding their kingdom into a patchwork of warfare and belief, crucial for medieval Europe's identity. Elsewhere, the Visigoths were leaving a deeper mark on Spain. Rome's fall left them first as allies before they became dominant throughout the Iberian Peninsula. Unified by conquest and conflict between their Arian Christian beliefs and the Nicene mainstream, the Visigothic realm faced internal religious disputes, a strain between rulers and Roman Catholic inhabitants, like a bridge rocking in a storm. Their kingdom featured a complex interplay of Roman law and Gothic customs, with rule managed via synods and assemblies. It was a fragile equilibrium of negotiation amidst ever-present threats. Their story reached a climax when King Recared adopted Catholicism at the Third Council of Toledo in 589 AD, solidifying a union of Gothic and Roman ways, calming tensions and starting an unsettled peace until the Umayyad Caliphate's arrival broke their stability. Then from the post-Roman remnants, the Lombards appeared as fierce new powers, migrating fighters who spread across Europe with raw drive. By the late 6th century, led by King Alboin, they took northern Italy, a strong presence among the shifting interests of Byzantines and competing groups. Within their armored ranks, ancient ways met new circumstances, with the Lombards balancing martial customs and the need for rule learned from Roman predecessors. The Edict of Rothari arose, showing their legal skill, combining Roman order with Germanic spirit. Although early resistance to Catholicism marked them, they came to value the Pope's influence. Conquered by Charlemagne in 774, their heritage was absorbed but endured, demonstrating the rise and fall of tribal power, remade over time. Yet no figure was as significant in medieval governance as Charlemagne. His rule shone as a symbol of ambition, spanning modern France to Germany and beyond. A shaper of cultural resurgence and territorial growth, he wove together a network of scholarship and rule, much like old Rome. His coronation by Pope Leo III on Christmas Day 800 AD linked secular rule with divine duty, portraying him as Christendom's defender. His realm experienced a Carolingian Renaissance, a rebirth in learning as Latin literacy created a lasting impact, felt throughout the church and across his empire, echoing like a sword strike in Europe's history. However, after his death, the flourishing empire swiftly broke into smaller feudal units. But his vision became woven into the medieval spirit, influencing ideas of cohesion and rule. Across Europe's changing map, beliefs conflicted. Christian aims sought to supplant Europe's pagan colors, sowing division through cultural shifts. While some rulers saw conversion as clever strategy, aligning with Rome's ethical and political strength, pagan rituals endured like bright patterns beneath uniform Christian systems. Therefore, this transition was a hesitant harmony between Earth's seasonal rites and heaven's single cross. While conflicts marked Europe's borders, diplomacy shaped its networks behind royal court facades. These courts pulsed with murmurs of politeness, where treaties were written as often as war strategies. Latin, the common language, coexisted with regional tongues, creating a web of communication that oversaw military matters. In these courts, matrimonial and trade politics were vital elements in a world defined by changing power and loyalty. Despite this upheaval, women remained resolute, though often overshadowed by male structures. They held quiet influence, shaping kingdoms. Queens such as Eleanor of Aquitaine exerted power, her planning matching a military commander's skill, navigating complex political systems. Occasionally, women commanded forces or fought as shield maidens, their tales piercing historical accounts like Quiet Rebellion. Amidst these myths and realities, the medieval world became a changing, fragmented mosaic, each realm contributing its distinct qualities, forging Europe's fundamental character. A faded echo that resonates today in both togetherness and separation. From Scandinavia's icy reaches, Vikings appeared as maritime warriors, originating from areas now known as Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. These hardy people sailed wide oceans in their longships, propelled by tales of deities and giants, and the need for new lands. When they looked past the horizon, a famed age commenced in 793 AD with an unexpected assault on Lindisfarne Abbey. This harsh attack on the tranquil Northumbrian monastery stunned Europe, filling coastal dwellers with fear and paving the way for Viking invasions into Britain, Ireland, and other lands. The Viking longship was central to their initial triumphs, admired for its adaptable yet strong build that enabled sailing on both seas and rivers. Built tough, these vessels featured detailed dragon carvings meant to repel sea creatures, showcasing both intimidation and skill. The changing seasons shaped their work, providing order and significance, with harvest celebrations breaking the year's routine. Yet beneath this farming rhythm lay a contrast. Ideal rural life overshadowed by the burden of feudal duties and basic survival. Meanwhile, nobles in their fortresses sought political unions and enjoyed luxuries unavailable to those who worked their fields, while church sermons spoke of modesty and spiritual duty in the countryside. By land and sea, Vikings launched bold assaults, navigating Europe's rivers like the Seine, Loire, and Volga. The boldness of these expeditions extended to Paris in 845 AD, where the famed Ragnar Lodbrok's fleet besieged the city, demanding payment that resonated with stories of Norse daring. Beyond combat, these rivers served as routes for lively trade, connecting northern Europe with Byzantium and the Islamic East. As shrewd traders, Vikings swapped furs and enslaved people for silver and spices, weaving their history with the peoples they encountered. Settlements such as Novgorod and Kiev strengthened their presence, spreading Norse ways along waterways, leaving enduring marks on the developing Kievan Rus. As the Viking era progressed, Christianity's message reached Norse leaders. Initially raiders of sacred wealth, the appeal of beneficial alliances and authority led several Viking kings to embrace the Christian religion. This shift saw figures like Harald Bluetooth of Denmark and Norway's Olaf Tryggvason guiding conversions, linking their domains with the broader cultural flows of Europe. As Viking chieftains rose to be kings, lands became stable kingdoms, giving rise to figures like Knut the Great, whose rule connected Scandinavia and England into a significant North Sea empire. The pillaging of monasteries, beginning with Lindisfarne, remains a stark image from this period. Monastic sites, seen as both sacred shelters and sources of wealth, were devastated. Their residents witnessed what they considered true sacrilege. Writers such as Alcuin of York voiced anguish at the sight of burning holy places. However, the destruction also spurred the church's growth, preparing the ground for future changes and utilizing the disorder to expand its secular authority. As invaders, the Vikings were also colonizers. The Danelaw in England demonstrates their impact, where Norse and Anglo-Saxon ways merge into a distinct blend. In Iceland, wild territories offered a new start for Norse settlers, who created a society led by chiefs and assemblies such as the Althing, the oldest legislative body still influential today. Here they preserved sagas and eddas, forming a strong literary heritage that recorded their adventurous history and gave their spoken stories lasting written shape. Scandinavia's focus later shifted eastward as the Varangian Swedish Vikings traveled the Volga and Dnieper, engaging with Byzantine and Slavic peoples. They eventually became a key component of the Rus state, leaving a history intertwined with Russia's story. Hubs like Novgorod became crucial trade routes, blending Norse heritage with Slavic practices and creating vibrant cultural interactions. Beyond battles and clashes, Vikings prospered as traders with thriving commercial links stretching from distant Asia to the Middle East's core. Camps evolved into active towns, crafts expanded, and skilled artistry flourished, giving lasting form to Norse centers such as Birka and Dublin, integrating their impact into the medieval European economy. Narratives were another key feature of Norse culture, with skalds embedding wars and myths into their people's shared history. By the 13th century, these spoken traditions were preserved in Icelandic sagas and eddas. Texts like the Prose Edda immortalized Norse lore, while sagas chronicled the heroic acts of figures such as Egil Skallagrimsson, mixing fiction with historical truth and maintaining Norse identity. These traditions left a permanent impact, enduring as valuable glimpses into a past age. The cessation of Viking attacks did not erase their influence. As shapers of culture, they left marks from France's Normandy to Britain's moors, embedding their narratives into Europe's social and cultural structure. The Norse heritage continues, not merely in language fragments or legends, but in a persistent spirit of adventure and creativity felt in the modern world. To the east, across Arabia's wide sun-scorched sands, a new power stirred, launching a story of knowledge and expansion, stemming from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century. Islam spread across lands, forming an empire that stood apart from the turmoil affecting medieval Europe. While Christendom struggled with collapsing realms in dark times, the Islamic world thrived. Scholars in Baghdad preserved and enhanced the wisdom of ancient Greeks, Indians, and Persians, contributing to a golden era of learning and commerce. Cities such as Damascus, Cairo, and Cordoba became lively centers for scholarship, attracting academics and traders whose steps echoed through busy markets filled with aromatics and fabrics. This rising Islamic civilization, founded on faith but aspiring to the cosmos, fostered progress in astronomy, medicine, and mathematics, areas Europe would later rediscover in wonder. An empire extended from Spain to the Indus River, displaying confidence and a drive for knowledge. However, as its frontiers neared Christian territories, conflict appeared unavoidable. By the late 11th century, a call for military action echoed across divided Christendom. Pope Urban VI's appeal for the First Crusade sparked passion, encouraging fighters to retake the Holy Land, promising forgiveness for their misdeeds. Numerous knights and commoners took the cross, driven by zeal that mixed religious belief with worldly aims. What started as a pious expedition devolved into fierce disorder. Waves of crusaders stormed Jerusalem in 1099, their fervor leaving streets stained with blood in a massacre that shocked even veteran soldiers. The city, a holy trophy, became a symbol of both promise and dread, offering divine honor for some, and for others, a fight for survival. As crusader states formed, they met a formidable foe in Saladin, whose honorable recapture of Jerusalem in 1187 represented a brief moment of tolerance within the violent upheaval. Among the clash of steel, knights bearing crosses appeared, sworn to vows that united military skill with religious piety. The Knights Templar and Hospitaller served as leading figures, embodying the contradiction of advocating peace while using force. The Templars grew into a mighty entity, serving as royal financiers, and met a tragic fate, charged with heresy and destroyed by jealousy and avarice. Concurrently, the Hospitallers adapted, developing into the modern Order of Malta. Alongside the conflict, commerce and cultural interactions occurred, forging links where hostility prevailed. Crusaders returning home brought spices, fabrics, and fresh knowledge that gradually benefited Europe. Eastern luxuries captivated European nobility, sparking interest that would eventually flourish into the Renaissance. Coastal centers such as Venice and Genoa prospered, becoming links across the Mediterranean, exchanging not only goods but concepts. Medicine, science, and philosophy crossed these cultural divides, suggesting shared human qualities. Yet beneath this exchange lay a faith-based economy. Pilgrimages increased, fueled by belief in holy objects and divine strength. Jerusalem, Santiago de Compostela, and Rome received many pilgrims seeking spiritual rewards, creating routes that became trade lifelines. Inns and traders flourished, yet authenticity was questioned, highlighting the paradox of salvation linked with trade and deceit. Architecture reflected the medieval spirit, with Christian Gothic cathedrals reaching skyward, serving as community centers for worship and pride. These structures took generations to finish, embodying shared faith and social order. In the Islamic world, mosques such as Cordoba's Grand Mosque displayed elegant simplicity and remarkable skill, acting as cultural hubs where learned individuals gathered. Both Christian and Muslim holy buildings showed competition and esteem, with fervent commitment defining the very basis upon which they rested. Amidst religious differences, the period also served as a melting pot for scholars who connected Eastern and Western thought. Islamic thinkers like Al-Farabi and Avicenna revitalized classical philosophy, inspiring European minds and leading to academic growth. Figures like Thomas Aquinas in the West integrated these concepts, blending them with Christian belief. This exchange fostered progress in science and medicine, with leading figures like Ibn al-Haytham initiating ideas ahead of their time. By the 13th century, Crusader passion diminished, exhausted by frequent setbacks and difficult truths. The ideals that once motivated states weakened, leaving behind the wreckage of fallen realms and scattered populations. Yet the effects of these wars persisted in societies altered by suspicion and hostility. The Crusades spurred change, not solely through victory, but through a complex mix of conflict and cooperation. The narrative of the cross and crescent forms a rich tapestry of belief, authority, and culture, intertwined with stories of shifts. The period paved the way for freer movement of ideas and trade. Despite the suspicion and conflict that affected participants, the mix of opposition and cooperation left a lasting impact, showing both society's strengths and weaknesses. As fighting ended, hints of common humanity remained, influencing a future where past lessons and wounds would still be felt. In medieval Europe's landscape, castles marked their shapes against the sky, standing as sturdy symbols of authority and defense. These massive stone structures rise to command the land, their walls thick enough to withstand assaults and strong enough to display their feudal masters' power. Beyond just military strongholds, castles were lively hubs of political activity and everyday existence. Inside these walls, knights prepared for combat, nobles managed court complexities, and staff kept fires burning. Castles buzzed with activity and schemes, their existence a constant sign of control over vast rural areas. Yet aside from their defensive function, castles also became places for social and cultural exchange. Noble residences held feasts where minstrels shared heroic stories and political pacts were softly made over mead cups. These events, while celebratory, held significant political weight, their subtle talks as secure as the moats around the fortresses. Castle design changed, incorporating circular plans and complex outer walls to frustrate attackers. Despite these changes, they remained steadfast symbols of the age, casting a long, notable shadow over history. While castles represented the Middle Ages' strength, cathedrals served its spirit. Rising from busy towns, these inspiring buildings stretched towards the sky, physically and spiritually. They acted as places of worship, learning, and art, embodying shared faith, often built over decades by the hard work of whole communities. Master masons, the quiet designers of these vast projects, sculpted beautiful figures and frescoes, giving their creations deep religious meaning. The sound of choirs and calm chanting filled these sacred places, creating a divine echo matching their soaring ceilings. Constructing a cathedral was a huge undertaking, with every level of society contributing effort or funds, from wealthy lords to poor farmers. These were more than just building projects. They symbolized community togetherness, grounding towns in a common goal. With their stained glass narratives and echoing interiors, cathedrals centered medieval towns, offering comfort, identity, and the certainty of a divine presence in daily existence. Their styles were distinct, showing local architectural variations, yet their aim was consistent: to honor the divine and inspire earthly visitors. Beneath these massive stone structures, medieval townspeople lived lives shaped by the land and the church. Peasants, the foundation of the feudal order, toiled according to nature's cycles and the church's calendar. Seasons directed their work, providing structure and purpose, with harvest events breaking the year's routine. However, beneath this farming pattern was a contrast: pleasant rural life overshadowed by the burden of feudal duties and bare subsistence. Meanwhile, castle-dwelling nobles sought strategic unions and enjoyed comforts denied to land workers, while church sermons spoke of modesty and spiritual duty in the countryside. As medieval towns grew, guilds formed within them, groups of skilled workers and merchants bringing order to the disorganized commerce. These groups established standards for crafts, ensuring quality and fairness, while training promising apprentices to become masters. Beyond their skilled work, guilds created social support systems, paving the way for a growing middle class. Amidst trade and cultural interaction, towns became places where new ideas could flourish, where hints of the future Renaissance were heard. Town life's energy sharply contrasted with isolated rural existence. Markets vibrated with foreign smells and languages, mixing in lively bazaars where social ranks temporarily blurred amidst the sound of business. This urban energy signaled unprecedented changes, the sparks of transformation glowing within the medieval structure. Alongside these changes, law developed as simple local rules grew into complex systems combining religious and secular requirements. The creation of common law marked a step towards centralized rule. Although justice remained uneven, influenced by feudal prejudices, beyond laws and trade, the medieval mind held on to the supernatural. Superstitions intertwined with daily life, prompting attempts to satisfy unseen powers. Folk beliefs and religion combined, creating a cultural blend where charms protected against unseen dangers and rites ensured life's fragile stability. The church, though dominant, coexisted with old pagan traditions, resulting in both worship and witch hunts. In the blossoming courts, chivalry arose, not just a knightly code, but a cultural ideal favoring faithfulness and courage in the name of love. The custom of courtly love, with its poetic conflict between longing and obligation, challenged marital norms, turning passing affection into an idealized release from duty. These ideas colored the medieval world with shades of imaginative romance and courtly respect, highlighting humanity's search for connection within everyday life. In medicine, Galen's influence shaped practices constrained by basic understanding and strong spiritual beliefs. Medieval medicine, with its focus on humors and balance, involved ritual as much as healing, blending scientific ideas and spiritual concepts equally. Religious journeys and medicinal drinks were linked, demonstrating the medieval search for knowledge regarding the veiled unknown of health. In this society, food availability, like luck, shifted between abundance and scarcity. Extravagant meals for the wealthy showed social standing, while commoners subsisted on basic produce, their diet determined by nature's often unforgiving supply. Yet as the medieval age declined, castles and cathedrals remained, signifying not a conclusion, but a transition. Under their enduring presence, society moved towards change, fostering concepts of individuality and investigation that would illuminate the way to an era of rebirth. The Middle Ages seemed a structured society, yet beneath its complex design, threads were about to break. As communities entered the 13th and early 14th centuries, troubling changes became noticeable. Climate variations disrupted seasonal patterns, unsettling farming cycles as crops failed more often. Hunger ravaged populations, its grim effects reaching from peasant dwellings to noble manors, leaving behind cries of want and barren lands. This lack of food created conditions for unrest, with apprehension growing beneath the surface. Religious and social strains brewed alongside these difficulties. The church, a body both mighty and rich, faced doubt and opposition internally. Throughout Europe, dissenting groups emerged, questioning the church's wealth and advocating for a return to religious simplicity. From lively Florence to far-off Bohemia, whispers of revolt were heard in centers of power, overlooked amid the noise of ceremonies and traditions until it was too late. Europe was primed for change, with sparks ready to start a major transformation. Then the Black Death arrived, spreading with a quiet and destructive force that felt almost unnatural. In 1347, ships delivered not only cargo, but disruption to Sicilian coasts. The bubonic plague spread its dark influence, moving through settlements and farms with deadly intent. Dreadful swellings marked its victims, each a quiet shout punctuating the air. Villages became silent under its impact, the lack of sounds of life as chilling as the suppressed cries of those perishing. As fear extended its reach, populations divided, each departure a break in the social structure. Various responses to the disease showed different regions and outlooks. Some sought comfort in prayer, holding rosaries tighter against divine anger, while others searched for culprits, their accusations shifting like shadows between Jews, alleged witches, or perceived heretics. The very basis of medieval society strained under these pressures, its cohesion as weak as a single thread. From despair, peculiar rites and customs appeared like weeds among destruction. Flagellants marched through towns, their self-whipping a disturbing show of religious devotion and despair. This widespread atmosphere of terror and piety embedded mortality into Europe's shared awareness, leaving a heritage of physical and spiritual marks. Amid this upheaval, social gaps widened. The plague thinned the workforce, shifting advantage to the surviving peasantry, who suddenly had leverage. Throughout kingdoms, the 14th and 15th centuries saw uprisings ignite, peasants wielding tools not for farming, but as signs of opposition against harsh taxes and mistreatment. England's Peasants' Revolt of 1381 emerged as a significant movement, led by figures like Wat Tyler and Jack Straw. Voices demanded fairness, freedom from serfdom's grim hold. Although these revolts faced brutal suppression, their impact endured, speaking truths to future generations. Rulers, suddenly conscious of the deep dissatisfaction among the populace, experienced an unwelcome challenge to their unlimited authority. Long-standing social orders started to weaken. Despite cruel punishment, with peasants hanged and leaders executed, the seeds of change took hold, questioning the existing system and inspiring hopes for future fairness throughout Europe. In the dark corners of rebellion and destruction, heresy became prominent. As the church strove to keep its religious dominance, passionate dissenters such as the Cathars, Lollards, and Hussites challenged its teachings and gained followers. The Inquisition responded, using force and intimidation to enforce compliance. Those labeled heretics, whether defiant thinkers or sincere believers, were condemned to be burned. Their accounts were recounted as warnings against straying from accepted belief. Yet even flames could not extinguish the ideas they initiated, a spirit of defiance that would later fuel the Reformation. Mystical practices thrived during this chaos. Flagellants moved through towns, their self-whipping a disturbing show of religious devotion and despair. Women such as Joan of Arc appeared, guided by visions and divine messages, representing both hope and a perceived threat. Holy figures and magic practitioners were intertwined in popular view. Meanwhile, society's structure was further strained as workers, aware of their diminished ranks, sought better terms and independence. While change was slow and those in power resisted weakening their control, serfs and servants began to see possibilities for advancement. Nobles balanced the force of tradition with the push of need, creating a situation where, despite efforts for order and calm, sparks of innovation appeared, even as difficulties persisted. Irony became apparent. A recognition of medieval life's strangeness grew, expressed through the clever remarks of jesters and poets who subtly criticized those in power. Finding humor in such hardship, whether bitter or welcome, was vital for persistence. As Europe moved forward, marked but strong, towards the Renaissance, these centuries left clear impressions on history. Heresies opened paths for religious change, while crises spurred by disease led to innovation. Uprisings planted seeds that grew into demands for fairness. History reflects those turbulent elements, showing that their influence persists in today's cultures. Looking back, we see not only our past shadows, but the lively energy of experiences gained and understood. Lessons shaping the ways we proceed with care and interest. If these accounts have sparked your curiosity or heightened your interest, like a fading ember's glow, please give us a like. For more stories from history's fascinating, less-seen parts, subscribe to Medieval Grime, where we present the past raw and often irreverent. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay grimy. As the 14th century began, Europe faced potential disaster, with complex royal lineages sowing seeds of conflict. Within the tangle of dynastic rights, England's King Edward III asserted his claim to the French throne via his mother, Isabella of France, setting off a complicated chain of events that would involve the continent in warfare for more than 100 years. In an age where authority was inherited and lineage determined rule, lines of succession were intricate and disputed. The relationship between England and France, long unstable, broke down into open war, where more than just land was at stake. It was a struggle for rightful rule, an intense contest to decide countries' destinies. France, a mix of diverse duchies and counties with varying customs and allegiances, splintered under the pressure of English claims. A realm like a multi-headed dragon, each part seeking its own control. In the gleam of sunlight on metal, knights emerged, the armored representation of medieval combat. Flags were raised to the powerful advance of horsemen, signaling the archetypal fighters of their time. The 100 Years' War gave them a chance to show great courage, yet it also signaled their waning. The Battle of Crécy in 1346 marked this change, as skilled and lethal English longbowmen cut down horsemen easily, indicating the end of cavalry dominance and the start of a new age of warfare. Amidst the noise of conflict, ordinary soldiers faced both meaning and danger. For farmers serving under English or French flags, war was often more about enduring than national loyalty. Huge forces advanced like plagues of insects, devastating the countryside, a harsh truth impoverishing many civilians in their way. As chivalric ideals met brutal reality, the gap between noble goals and the harsh labor of foot soldiers widened, reflecting a touching, occasionally bleak reality. Siege warfare, a brutal display of persistence and cleverness, became common around blockaded castles, where fear was as heavy as battle smoke. Ambitious attacks at Calais and prolonged desperation at Orléans served as clear examples of medieval warfare's harshness, where success might depend on shrewd tactics or simple endurance. The scenes and sounds, groaning catapults, urgent cries from ramparts, and the silent impact of hunger and sickness were stark. These sieges left lasting marks on the landscape, as permanent as any family rivalry. Devastated farms and destroyed villages created widespread poverty and sadness. As years of war turned into decades, the land showed damage that lasted longer than the aims that caused it. Yet amidst this devastation, a spirit of resilience arose. Farmers worked war-damaged fields, merchants found new ways to trade, and life aimed to continue despite the constant threat of conflict. In France's burnt landscapes, a young girl's vision sparked like fire. Joan of Arc, a commoner of firm belief and resolve, appeared as a guiding light during France's most difficult time. Her story, shrouded in mystery and wonder, claims divine voices led her to relieve the siege of Orléans and crown King Charles VII. Joan, wearing armor, possessed a charm as effective as any weapon, reviving the morale of a struggling nation. Her capture, trial, and burning at the stake created a potent legend, both admired and despised. The complexities of politics and religious doctrine showed how quickly a rescuer could become someone blamed for problems. Burned in Rouen yet made timeless in history, Joan's sacrifice went beyond her harsh end, turning her into a symbol, a lasting legend speaking of human determination and divine mystery combined. In Europe's royal courts, the practice of diplomacy occurred under the serious responsibility of leadership. Rulers used marriage strategically, forming alliances and ceremonies that proved fragile. Courtly activities went beyond personal gain into complicated networks of deception and disloyalty. Henry I's win at Agincourt showed how such connections could become dangerous traps, with political partnerships as unstable as changing sands. War's steady progress trapped civilians in unpredictability, forcing survival amidst peril and instability. Towns were fortified against threats, their walls representing defense, but also becoming confinements. Illness spread with the smell of unburied dead, and mothers mourned spouses and sons lost to fighting. Despite this, a spirit of resistance remained, encouraging culture, music, and endurance. As knights rode into battle, warfare's appearance was forever altered. The 100 Years' War became a testing ground for new ideas. Gunpowder weapons signaled a harsh new age, cannon blasts echoing through time, making high walls useless. These developments changed tactics and power relations, connecting status, money, and technology in ongoing progress. War's destructive path spurred change, disrupting social and economic structures while fostering potential for recovery. Populations decreased, towns decayed, yet the remaining parts provided fertile ground for growth. An emerging merchant class gained prominence, altering social ranks. Old ways yielded to necessity and new methods. By 1453, when the turbulent period ended, both the land and its people were weary. English goals failed on France's damaged territory, leaving England victorious but altered. Peace, defined by treaties, proved as delicate as glass, hinting at future conflicts as ambition was contained within written accords. From the struggle, new identities formed. France and England, formerly feudal parts, became unified nations. History recorded lessons, courage, loss, error, into a narrative of human experience that resonated through ages. What began as a dispute over rule and territory became a lasting story of complex, relatable humanity. Long after the Western Roman Empire collapsed, the Byzantine Empire endured, a center of Eastern Christianity. Constantinople, with its golden domes and vivid mosaics, was not just a city but a sophisticated wonder. The Byzantines, strongly traditional and self-governing, viewed themselves as Rome's true successors, preserving a heritage linked to both ancient glory and the tough realities of the medieval age. Their complex administration governed an empire bridging old ways and new ideas, highlighted by Hagia Sophia's solemn chants and the intricate passages of their political system. Yet beneath the decorated exterior, Byzantine existence was like a calm sea, hiding rough currents of dispute and opposition. Emperors frequently gained and lost power based on unstable military outcomes and ambitious governing bodies. Iconoclast debates divided an empire dedicated to faith, making holy images subjects of contention and change. Thus, in the vastness of Byzantium, life presented a contrast of refined negotiation and abrupt conflict, a world pulled between former glory and future doubt. The empire's strength faced its ultimate test in 1453, when the Ottomans, under Sultan Mehmed II, attacked Constantinople. For over 1,000 years, the city's Theodosian walls had kept invaders out, but Mehmed the Conqueror combined old military methods with the new force of gunpowder, pounding these defenses with massive cannons. As Byzantine defenders fought bravely, destiny's unavoidable advance sealed their city's fate. Constantinople's fall reshaped the medieval world, signaling the start of Ottoman power and the end of Byzantium. With Constantinople becoming Istanbul, the Ottomans rose as rulers of Eastern Europe and Western Asia. Established by Osman III, the Ottomans incorporated various influences, mixing Turkic warrior traditions with Islamic rule and Byzantine administrative approaches. Istanbul became a lively central point, drawing academics, craftsmen, and religious figures, fostering the famous Ottoman Golden Age under Suleiman the Magnificent. As rulers, they accepted diversity, granting religious groups self-rule through the millet system, promoting stability alongside cultural and artistic richness. While the Ottomans gained strength, Moorish Spain prospered in the Iberian Peninsula, combining Islamic, Christian, and Jewish cultures into a brilliant mix. This blend reached its peak in Al-Andalus, where cities such as Córdoba became centers of learning, attracting academics globally. Moorish palaces like the Alhambra showcased architectural excellence, while Córdoba was a hub of scholarship and art, combining the heritage of Greek, Roman, and Islamic ideas. However, this thriving stronghold existed precariously amidst shifting political power and religious coexistence. The Reconquista, fueled by Christian zeal, took place over centuries as Christian kingdoms retook the peninsula with church backing. This effort was viewed as a holy undertaking, incorporating military techniques in advancements into its plans. The fall of Granada in 1492 marked the end of Moorish rule, changing Iberia's social and political structure and indicating increasing religious uniformity. Although the Reconquista ended Moorish governance, it set Spain and Portugal on a course for worldwide exploration, sending vessels across oceans to create new histories. During this period of change, the Umayyad Caliphate in Cordoba offered a striking difference, promoting an intellectual revival amidst the Dark Ages. Led by rulers such as Abd al-Rahman III, Cordoba welcomed various thinkers, flourishing into a cultural and academic sanctuary. Prominent figures like Maimonides and Averroes excelled, advancing medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Despite being located in an area of border conflicts, Cordoba demonstrated humanity's vast potential for learning, achieving unity through variety and cooperation. Life under Moorish control was complex, resembling a mosaic, with the dhimmi system granting protected status to non-Muslims in exchange for taxes. Despite unequal status, this system allowed for lively cross-cultural interactions, fostering economic and intellectual contributions. Talented craftsmen and academics from Christian and Jewish groups enriched Moorish society. However, limitations often affected this coexistence, requiring communities to manage potential conflicts while maintaining their distinct traditions. Throughout this period, cultural exchange continued between medieval Europe and the Moors, influencing European customs. Beyond conflict, Europe gained valuable knowledge and methods in farming, art, and building, creating a strong heritage enhanced by Moorish advancements. Translated Arabic writings boosted European intellectual rebirth, presenting new methods in mathematics, science, and philosophy. This mingling of ideas created a shared history of development and creativity, surpassing boundaries and beliefs. Moorish Spain's architectural achievements, from the Alhambra to the Mesquita, inspire awe with their detailed stucco and colorful tile patterns, embodying the blend of purpose and artistry. The Alhambra's peaceful courtyards, Cordoba's arches, they remain as lasting symbols of cultural merging, creating places of peace amidst daily existence. Despite the Reconquista's influence, Moorish art and ideas survived, remaining part of Europe's changing story. With the Reconquista's success, a single Catholic Iberia formed, setting its future course on a global scale. Yet even amidst religious fervor and changes, traces of Moorish influence were felt, weaving through developing societies and echoing in later cities and art forms. Despite attempts to create a uniform cultural identity, Iberia's Moorish heritage endures, showing the complexity within a rich history, shaped equally by remembering and the unavoidable fading of the past. In the faint light of wavering candles, a significant change started across Europe. Johannes Gutenberg, a metalworker with an inventor's mind, created a machine that would revolutionize the world, his printing press. Before its noise-filled workplaces, books were made by tired scribes, their hands sore from tireless copying. But with movable type, ideas spread quickly beyond monastery limits, awakening minds everywhere. Ink touched paper, and suddenly knowledge moved freely, disturbing a society unused to such swift shifts. While the smell of ink began filling the air, hinting at both potential and dangers, the past's ghostly hold lingered. Pages brought understanding, but also stirred up old fears lurking in the dark, creating a promising yet uneasy setting for the Renaissance. As Gutenberg's press performed its marvels across the vast Atlantic, sails caught the wind of ambition and change. Christopher Columbus, driven by exploration and supported by Spain eager for new lands, ventured to redraw global limits. In 1492, his journey marked more than just finding land. It challenged medieval views, where the world was seen as fully mapped and familiar. Yet his findings showed medieval perspectives, a mix of wonder and deep-seated ideas of dominance. His meetings with new lands exposed inconsistencies, an undertaking pushing towards new starts, yet revealing exploitation's dark side. Beneath the wide skies where his vessels outlined limitless potential, they also linked past and present ages. This period was one of lively artistry, a world painted by masters whose names were known in great houses and simple dwellings. Leonardo and Michelangelo, inspired creators, took art beyond form and tradition. Their great works, though monumental, were produced within the medieval system of guilds and sponsors. Even as they aimed for the unknown heights of human capability, their art, a balance between religious respect and personal expression, cast shadows where human ambition met divine aspiration. Yet within these bright appearances lay the persistence of old beliefs. A world full of promise was also troubled by illogical fears, most clear in the desperate witch hunts that seized communities in their panic. While society moved closer to the modern era, it sometimes regressed, giving in to basic instincts in its strange relationship with darkness. Oddly, in a time leaning towards new reason, the shouts of accused witches were heard over this forward movement, a grim sound echoing medieval times. Even the refined parts of cities approached by Renaissance minds held secret places where past cruelties remain. Torture tools were kept within developing societies, terrifying reminders of when justice mixed with brutality. These devices spoke of humanity's darker tendencies, showing authority used with force and fear. Despite the growth of knowledge, remnants of medieval justice couldn't be fully removed, their roots too strong in society's values. Alchemy, persistent and mysterious, occupied a strange space between science and mysticism. Amidst smoky experiments with sulfur smells, alchemists pursued the impossible, trying to change base metals into gold, seeking eternal life. Here, old practices met curiosity, a pursuit always balancing the real and the magical. Alchemy represented humanity's constant desire to uncover life's mysteries, linking past rituals with the New Age's detailed investigations. This conflict reached the skies, where figures like Copernicus and Galileo dared to dispute accepted astronomical ideas. The stars, once seen as simple adornments in a divinely arranged universe, called with new findings that conflicted uneasily with existing beliefs. In this high realm, religion and logic clashed intensely, showing a deep battle over what constitutes truth. The conflict revealed a society caught between the familiar comfort of tradition and the inevitable drive for discovery. On Earth, the feudal foundation of medieval life started to weaken. Growing economies and active towns moved power from nobility to merchants, a major change that challenged the old duties of vassals and lords. Yet in rural areas, remnants of serfdom endured, casting influences that resisted this disruptive change. Here was a world undergoing change, yet holding firmly to the accustomed structure of feudal society. Legal systems also felt this transformative energy. As trade grew, the demand for consistent justice became louder than local customs. Yet even with more centralized laws, clear traces of the past remained. The push for reason encountered old practices with mixed feelings, moving forward yet limited by medieval viewpoints. As this remarkable age stood at the border between light and dark, the situation was one of change, marked by notable differences. It was a world both leaving behind and accepting its medieval history. The medieval spirit, still strong, pulsed alongside new ideas, moving from the old age's certainties towards a future full of opportunities. This blend of past and future created a significant, powerful story, lighting the way forward even as past influences remained like lingering ghosts in history. Language, the delicate link to our ancestors, carries the marks of medieval society. Words such as serf and chivalry, born from the hierarchical structure of the Middle Ages, are still relevant, shaping how we view obligation and social rank. In a world where handwritten books shone with gold, not just ink, they represented power and tradition. English developed as Old English mixed with Norman French over time, creating dialects that echo the majesty of Latin songs within tall churches, promising heavenly rewards amidst the fearful prospect of eternal punishment. Names are sometimes like fingerprints, traces from the time of artisans and noble families. Names such as Smith and Weaver recall the importance of skilled work, while prefixes like D show a family link to the land, a mark of status or heritage. Sayings passed down through generations, snippets of medieval wisdom on love and destiny, serve as faint echoes of life under feudal governance. These terms, remnants of a lost time, prompt us to look into a past populated by lords, vassals, and history's steady progress. Feudalism's influence remains amidst modern tall buildings. Once a structure of land, allegiance, and status, its effects are seen in current property rules. Ownership involves more than having things. It's a complex system of inheritance, Its legal basis was formed in medieval times. Where power is imbalanced, landowners now resemble their predecessors, the medieval lords, with tenants bound by agreements similar to old serfs. Political systems reflect these historical ranks. Noble titles, now mostly symbolic, still carry quiet influence. Corporate structures resemble medieval courts where influence was paramount. Modern administration is partly based on the systems that kept kingdoms intact during instability. Lobbying and patronage reflect medieval court politics, connecting centuries with complicated power dynamics. Look at a city skyline and see the spirit of medieval strongholds revived. Corporate and public buildings resemble ancient towers, conveying power and safety. Their stone-like fronts show lasting durability. In our houses, thick curtains and wall hangings remain from when they protected against winter. Now chosen for decoration, the fireplace, once a central fire, serves as a symbol of shared family life. Gated neighborhoods act as modern moats, securing residents, strongly imitating the past's wish for security and exclusivity. Alongside today's scientific knowledge, medieval superstition persists. The unlucky number 13's dark association comes from numerological beliefs given cosmic importance. Builders avoid 13th floors, remnants of a time when magic was part of life. These superstitions hint at mysteries, leftovers of beliefs mixing magic and religion. Rituals appear modern but hide medieval roots. Knocking on wood for good fortune reflects old tree reverence. Weddings resemble festive rites, with bridal veils alluding to medieval meanings seeking divine blessing. Even funerals, solemn marches of people dressed in black, mirror old practices showing how rituals connect human practicality with lasting mystery. Mythology endures, weaving knights, dragons, and quests into our culture. While dragons appear in fantasy movies, they originate from medieval ideas. Stories like King Arthur offer insights into bravery and honor, keeping ideals alive and inspiring modern works. These narratives link past and present, crossing history's path in their depictions of bravery and ethics. The hero's tale, influenced by medieval stories, remains a key narrative structure. Themes of deceit, exploration, and honor were prominent in medieval accounts, enriching our cultural inheritance. These stories bring to life the difficulties our ancestors faced, preserving their trials in contemporary accounts. Old pharmacies combined alchemy and medicine, integrating past practices into today's remedies. While leech treatment seems amusing now, its place in medical history is significant, showing the mix of old methods and modern care. Medieval healing's holistic approach resembles today's integrated medicine, tracing back to a time when doctors aimed for balance among bodily fluids. This meeting of old knowledge and current investigation highlights a period of study beyond simple mechanics, challenging modern efforts with questions from antiquity. Today's laws show the influence of medieval justice. The jury system developed from a process where equals judge based on standing. Ordeals by fire and water, though seemingly brutal, reveal the medieval mix of divine will and human rules. These concepts are reflected in legal symbols and structures, linking periods by showing how society grew from simple, perhaps mistaken, beginnings. Guilds protected knowledge, similar to early unions, influencing trade with rules mirrored in today's professional conduct. Sumptuary laws resonate in modern dress codes indicating status, like in the medieval system of clothing rules. Medieval ideas about punishment persist, influencing discussions about today's penalties. These rules highlight the ongoing balance between power and freedom, a dynamic running through history. Religion, central to medieval existence, strongly affected rule and culture. Though changed, its impact continues. Churches with their grand designs represent power still felt through religious bodies. Pilgrimages resemble spiritual retreats, linking ancient practices through modern searches for purpose. Medieval religious conflicts mirror current faith discussions, showing religion's lasting hold on politics and private life. Medieval inquisitions left significant marks, but the period's artistic rebirth highlights its capacity for deep beauty. Old songs remain, showing human weakness and hopes, connecting us to a time when spiritual seeking ignited feelings that still resonate now.